Hey, it's the Jimmy Doane Show. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's 4 p.m. That means the show is live. We do this twice a week these days, as you can see on the sign, Wednesdays and Sundays. For your viewing pleasure, I'll also post a copy of this show up on YouTube, time-stamped. All the subjects time-stamped, so you can click through them easily. It's really convenient. Also, post a copy up on Twitter, and we're around the web in audio format. If you search for Jimmy Doane, D-O-A-N-E, Doane. Today is the 22nd day of December 2019. I am in the California studio. Jimmy is in the Washington outdoor studio. What is happening today?
What is happening today? Okay. Not much. No, actually, no. Well, of course,
got a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, actually, we do. I got a couple of things here that we can chit chat about. I suppose we're going to have to get around to the impeachment at some point.
Well, I got a little bit of update, just a little bit of clarification update on the whole impeachment thing. So.
Okay, I'm looking down here at your cat.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about? Right? Don't tell Mrs. Jimmy.
Go lay down.
Yeah. Let me go through a couple of things before we get to the impeachment. Of course, it's kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. Supreme Court lets stand. Did we talk about this? The let's stand, the ruling that protects homeless who sleep on the sidewalk?
No, we didn't update.
Okay.
But you're right.
What happened was the Ninth Circuit Court, and more about that later, the Ninth Circuit Court, which is out west there, 9 states or something,
yeah, same
and thing. They had ruled that the homeless, it violates the 8th Amendment for cruel and unusual punishment to give them a ticket to get them off the to
bag them for
right, and so they considered it what they said was and so they went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, "You were not handling this. Go back to your you're good, go back home." And so they let it stand. Mm-hmm. And so as it is now, the way it reads is the outcome was a significant victory for the homeless activists and a setback for city officials in California and other western states that argued the ruling from the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals undercut their authority to clean the streets up. And what they said was, if you don't provide a homeless shelter for these people, then it's cruel and unusual punishment to hand them a ticket and get them off the road or whatever.
Right. Without an alternative.
Without an alternative, right. And so it was the 8th Amendment is what they used up. So that was the cruel and unusual punishment was the way they did it. So now you're back to what somebody called it. San Fran feces, or whatever they have on the roads there. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's a lot of the people, of course, are asking the authorities to get the homeless out of there, but now they can't.
Yeah, they're in a predicament. We're just going to have to see. Time will tell how they handle it, because at some point you have to have a little stick in the system. It can't be all carrot. And they keep coming up with these carrots, like we're going to build this multi-billion-dollar, all-inclusive resort, basically, for the homeless.
I'm going homeless.
Well, exactly. That's the whole point. The whole point. They don't understand. Having a home is one of the motivations of being alive. And when you take that away, you take away a main motivation for doing stuff. And so...
well, my question is, what are these people living on?
The homeless people?
Yeah. I mean, they must have money.
A little bit here, a little
Charge
bit
them
there.
rent.
Some of them you could, yeah. But see,
$10.
Look, the whole point is what people fail to understand about the homeless people. We've talked about this a few times, and that is at least half of them are mentally
ill. That's right.
And do not. A roof is not even a registered thing. It's outside. I'm fine.
Yeah, no, that's right. We had a lot of those even here in town. Mm-hmm. We had we had an encampment on this side of town. They finally cleaned it. It was actually on private property, but the guy didn't really.
Well, it was the Amtrak property, so they didn't.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at any rate, they interviewed some of the people. I've been homeless for 21 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is my lifestyle.
I've seen the same people literally. Have hit me up 20 years later, the same dude on the same bicycle.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? In 20 years you haven't
couldn't
done
find
anything?
Well,
but look, you got just the curve. There's going to be people at the edges.
Yeah.
And and the people at the low edge there.
Well, as I say, even around here, for a while we had an anti-panhandling ordinance, but it got overturned by the courts. They said, you can't, it's free speech or something.
Yeah,
and so now, literally, you can see there are corners here in town that are pretty popular, and you'll have at least 2 people on the 4 corners. You'll have 2 of them occupied by people coming and going.
So I think it's still illegal for them to ask you for money.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But you can basically have a sign there that says
They have a
God
sign.
bless
They all have signs. Yeah, it'll say homeless vet.
Anything helps.
Anything helps, right? Because like we do here with our parking.
Right, exactly.
It's voluntary.
Exactly. And so they can't. Until I think the economy really actually starts to recover in a real way, I think these are the people who are left on the outskirts. I mean, from my perspective, it's the worst people. I mean, it's the people who are worse off in society that get held down by the type of economy that we have.
Well, people, and of course, one of the things you do find is that not are they mentally ill, but they're addicted to something.
Oh yeah,
and so,
totally.
Besides that, so in other words, you know where that money's going.
Half of them will tell you, I need money for a beer.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting. Yeah. Speaking of,
I have to agree. I mean, as libertarian as I am, I have to agree with Shapiro on this one.
Oh yeah.
And that is, at some level, you have to make a determination that the people are literally harming themselves to the point of death, and it's moral at that point to use force to save somebody. And that's that's the edge of the slope right there.
It is. It's like you Baker Act them. I mean, that's
right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
That's what it is.
It's a Baker Act type of thing, and for people who don't know, in Florida, there's a thing where they can get you for 3 days. Basically, they can put you in a place until they determine that you're no longer a harm to yourself. And it's a very limited thing. They like it's 3 days here in Florida, but I could see where they could do that for people and have them indefinitely held, or at least sort of pseudo held. And I mean, I can see the argument for insane asylums based on this homeless epidemic. It's real. Look, there's a certain number of people who just aren't people. They're just
not people.
They're not quite. I mean, they're humans, but they're so low functioning that they're basically, you have to treat them like an animal. You have to
euthanize them.
Right?
No, that's it. It's like the dog shelter here.
Right.
You know when it gets overcrowded,
euthanize them, sterilize them. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about.
I had the cure.
I'm talking about the opposite. I'm talking about they have to be cared for, like you care for your pet. You have to, like, if you let your dog out, he's gonna die. He's dead. Like, maybe he'll survive, but that's.
I get. It's just like you say. That does go against some libertarian type stuff.
Oh, it's totally. That's like, I'm not. But I have to say there is a line at some point you have to take over for. He's getting in our way here.
No, it's just interesting. Your cat. That's the problem. It's raining. It's raining. Not here, but back where you are, but someplace down in Florida where Jimmy Doane shows normally come is raining. So
right.
Cat doesn't want to go out. The judge, now another legal thing. Judge orders Wisconsin to purge about 250,000 voters from the voter rolls. Now, needless to say, the Stacey Abrams or Stacey whatever it was in Florida, she was screaming that they had purged the rolls. In Georgia, and it was disproportionate. And they said here, it's going to be disproportionate against. It has to be. So they Democrats. It says Democrats will be hardest hit by the removals in a state that Trump narrowly won in 2016. Well, needless to say, people are up in arms about this and what they've done is they sent a postcard to the last known address, and they said, we're going to purge you. And this is like after 3 or 4 years or something that they haven't voted. So they send them a note and say, you have to come and re-register or tell us where you are or something. And it turns out that even if you move, if you're in an apartment complex and you move down the 2 doors down, you still have to re-register, they said, according to this. But
yeah, that makes sense.
It's interesting. They're warning nearly 250,000 voters that they need to re-register their addresses to remain on the voter rolls. If you move, even if in the same apartment building, you still got to do it. The letter did not give people a deadline to register, and an October press release from the Elections Commission said anyone who received the letter would remain on the list of eligible voters until 2021. So
There you
that gets past the next election. So what's the problem? Well, anyway, there's a lawsuit. They are required by law to purge the letter within 30 days. They're supposed to purge him, but I don't know. It's who knows what. But the bottom line is, there's a big stinkeroo about this. When they had it in Kentucky, and I don't know how they purge the rolls here in Gainesville or Alachua County or whatever. But I can understand why it would be an ongoing and continuing problem.
Sure. That's just one of the political fights, like gerrymandering the districts or whatever. Well, we want to restrict this type of access, but to me, it's a wash. It's not a big issue. I don't see any widespread voter fraud on either side. You get claims on both sides that they're doing this, they're doing that. You're like you said, there's no way to purge voter rolls without it being uneven.
Right.
The odds that it would land exactly dead even for all parties, that's impossible. So there's.
Well, I think as I recall, I don't know how it is in Florida, but I think if you show up and they say you're not on the rolls here, I think you can still do a provisional vote.
Oh, look, there's all kinds of things. That's why I say it's not a problem.
Yeah.
These days, you have absentee voting.
I mean, it used to be absentee voting. You had to get a note from your recruitment guy in Afghanistan.
Exactly.
Well, now, anybody, you can walk into the elections office and get your absentee ballot.
Exactly.
I'm
on vacation. I need an absentee ballot.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think that's fine.
And not only that, of course, they have, at least here in Florida, they've got about 10 days before the actual election.
Right, at least, yeah.
And they're screaming, it's so hard. You've had, like right now, the election is not until November, whatever it is, 5th or 6th or something, next year, 11 months from now. If you can't get down there and get registered or something, an ID, whatever you want to call it, in that time,
I'm with you. Look, it's easy. It's easy. There's no problem with the voting. The problem with the voting is that it doesn't get you anything. It gets you vote, you get a representative, and then the representative gets to do whatever they want.
Right, and that's what happens here.
I mean,
they run on very narrow issues to get the vote.
Well, how do you vote for a representative? Like, you pick somebody who's one issue, or do you try
They do sometimes, yeah.
Of course they do. Of course, because
unfortunately, that leaves the other 22 issues up to the discretion, and it might be totally inimical to you.
Or I mean, it could be, like you said, the worst possible. And so if what you have to, I mean, look, there's no way to win from the voting situation unless you could vote.
I don't vote.
Well, unless there's one way, and that is with legislative initiatives and constitutional amendments and things.
Yeah.
That is, if the people were voting directly for the law, as opposed to voting for a representative who votes for the law, we would have a much more representative democracy, whether or not that.
Yeah, but see, they pass. Here, just the city council here passes probably 100 or 200 laws a year. Vote on every one of them. I mean, they meet every 2 weeks, for God's sakes.
You could have a website. You could have a website people register to vote, and you just go and click on your issue.
Yeah, you can imagine that. Oh, click on your issues. That's one thing. But again, a lot of people here. I mean, I've gone down and talked to these people during the public meeting time or whatever it is, citizen comment, which now, by the way, they're restricting it here. But it doesn't make any difference to them.
Well,
they've already made up their mind.
That's why I've written off the city, state, county governments as being sort of powerless, because there's nothing you can do unless you're going to do a citizen initiative, unless you do a constitutional amendment.
I was thinking about a citizen initiative to disband the city commission.
They've done it in places.
Really?
Oh, sure. Well, we've talked about, for example, I think Brussels is still operating, quote unquote, without a government.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
And it makes sense in the grand scheme of things. But back to, we're getting off track on the voter thing. I don't see it as a problem.
No, I don't either. Now, the next thing we've got here is Washington, another kind of a government thing. Washington State steps up to defend female athletes in the trans debate. Now, we talked a little bit about this before, but competition is the name of the game. But what constitutes, a fair a fair, game or whatever it is. And I know that Scott Adams, for instance, he said, let them all go in there, whatever. And I don't think that
doesn't work.
Gender should be addressed, and who is right when it comes to females or sports, transgenders competing against whom, and so forth.
Look, here's the way that I see it, is that whoever's setting up the leagues gets to determine who's in the leagues.
Okay.
If you set up a little league, you don't get to put 22-year-olds in there, or you get to define what the things are, and that's where your freedom comes in. Is you can set up whatever kind of league you want. You can set up a trans league if you want. Go for it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember.
But you can't tell somebody else that they have to let you into their league.
Yeah.
Just because you want to play. That's not how it works. You can't just butt in to everybody's business like that, and that's what they're trying to say. Is this is a public thing, and
well, this one representative up here, is Republicans. He filed in Washington State Legislature that would prevent biological males who want to identify as females from competing in some
what's to prevent the men from applying to a sorority?
Well, that's not all. They've already had the bathroom wars.
The bathroom wars. Well, I mean, dorms, bathrooms, everything. I mean, why not? You just okay.
I remember when Mrs. Jimmy was out. She used to play tennis out here at this place, and there was a guy who was,
trans guy.
Well, I don't know if he was trans, but he was.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know.
He was whatever he was, but she said she was in her stall and saw these hairy legs go by and this deep voice, and she said, "Jesus, let me out of here." So. So
it comes down to how people want to.
Well, what he says is, I'm running this in support of female athletes, he said, so they can compete against each other and not have to compete against male athletes who have different hormones flowing through their veins.
Oh, so they're defining male and female as actually male and female.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
And that's what he wants to do. He said it's meant to protect natural-born female rights, not dehumanize transgender people as PFLAG. Which is PFLAG. I looked it up. That's an organization.
Oh yeah.
PFLAG, and I looked it up, and it said it used to be an acronym for parents, friends, lesbians against and gays or something or whatever it is. That's their group is for trans rights or something. But now they've got rid of the acronym part and just call it PFLAG. I guess you're supposed to. I had to look it up because it doesn't what did. But anyway, it says, using that logic, allowing transgenders to compete against females is an attempt to invalidate the latter, and they, PFLAG, continues in the argument. There's no evidence that transgender athletes cause any serious danger to the sports in which they participate. Well, that's wrong, I think.
Well, it depends on how you define serious danger. I mean, if you want the women to still have a league of their own and compete, then you can't let biological men compete with them. That's just the end of the
It's interesting because I think about Bad News Bears, for instance. One of the heroes in that was a girl.
Yeah, well, they're kids.
Yeah.
And at that level, you can mix whatever you want.
Right.
But once you get into adolescence, then all of a sudden the boys get a lot.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, hormones, they be raging.
They're real. It's a real thing. You can tell. You can look at a person and tell. And,
I tell you, when I was in high school wrestling, I'm not sure I'd want to wrestle against some girl because she'd beat me. So anyway, okay, another federal law, which I thought was interesting. Donald Trump signs a bill raising the legal smoking age from 18 to 21. Now, what I thought was interesting about this, a couple of things. Well, first of all, it was included in the budget bill, in the $700 billion budget bill, which was a must-pass bill. And this is one of those things they do quite often in Congress, is they'll tag on something that they know has to be passed anyway.
Yeah, they need to have a single item.
Yeah, single item stuff. So anyway, they did that, but I thought they call it a crackdown on youth smoking by changing the minimum age for cigarettes and other tobacco purchase. Vaping also, by the way.
Yeah, well, that's what we talked about last week. Was, for me, this is just an effort by tobacco to clamp down on vaping.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're trying to derail the shift into vaping.
Well, I mean, but
they realize that young people are vaping in droves.
Okay.
And this is just total speculation on my part, but my conspiratorial mind has the big tobacco lobbyists up in Congress drafting this law to try to influence young people to stop vaping as much, so that they'll continue to smoke cigarettes. Because if you gotta break the rule, well, then it doesn't really matter.
I suppose, but it'll be interesting to see how what's interesting, they said they're giving the U.S. Food and Drug Administration 6 months to develop the regulations, and then they would have 3 years to work with the states in implementing the change. But I just, of course, as I say here, we've got at least one drugstore here that has completely obliterated. You can't buy cigarettes in there. You have a couple of. It's interesting because we do have 3 or 4 vaping shops here in Gainesville now. I don't know I've never been into one to find if they sell cigarettes also.
I doubt it, but they might.
They might, yeah. It's got to be. Of course, the other thing that happens is when you got to figure out if somebody who's 18 or 19 or 20 wants to. It'd be like buying liquor, I guess. You get an ID, what do you do? I remember when they first passed it, when I was still smoking, this was years ago, over here at Walgreens, they said they had to ask everybody. I was like 65.
Yeah.
And I had to show my ID in order to buy a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, well, they've gotten hyper militant about some of those things, but to me, this is all just state parenting. Look, this is parents' purview. Parents decide whether their kids are going to smoke or not smoke, and that's...
well, that's not all. And, of course, you say that. Of course, I know that a lot of parents will say, as we have here, don't smoke, and the kid goes and hides it anyway.
Well, but the point is that's a home thing. That's something that needs to be dealt with by the state. We don't need police officers bagging kids for smoking. And it's just so overkill to me.
You kill them if they sell Lucy's.
Well, yeah, well... Huh?
Well, the other thing that I thought was interesting about liquor, you go to Paris or France or something like that, the kids are there, the 6, 7-year-olds with some wine.
Yeah.
No, nobody says a word.
I had a case in court one time where I had to defend a kid from England who had stolen some beer.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I did the quotes, but he did steal the beer. But the point was, the reason he stole the beer was because he couldn't buy the beer.
Uh-huh.
And that was my argument. And they didn't like that argument. The authorities didn't like that argument.
Yeah.
But it was true. He would have bought the beer if he could have bought the beer. And what happened was his friends sent him in to get beer, and he couldn't get it, so he stole it. And it was like, well, okay.
What kind of friend is that?
Well, there's kids, whatever.
Well, okay. Next, we are going to move on to the impeachment now.
Okay, go for it.
Pelosi and McConnell, masters of the congressional chessboard, face off over impeachment.
Uh-huh.
They're struggling over a few sheets of paper that, when stapled together, barely rival the standard apartment lease in heft.
Uh-huh.
These are the articles of impeachment, one charging abuse of power and the other obstruction of Congress, approved by the House of Representatives on Wednesday. Now, these, of course, there's 2 things to consider here, as we've talked about once, and that is, these hardly are legal. These things are not illegal. That is, what they've charged are not illegal things. It's just, I don't know where is the charging, not abuse of power. Let's see, one...
Abuse of Congress, or obstruction of Congress. Abuse of power, right. They're not crimes, right.
Yeah, right. So if they're not crimes, what are you doing? That kind of thing. In other words, how are you going to convict him on something that's not a crime? That's number one.
Well, the answer to that is they don't need a crime. It's anything. As we've talked about, it's a misdemeanor, which nobody knows what that is.
Oh, that's right.
And people assume that it's a crime, but it says other high crimes and misdemeanors, so it's really anything.
Yeah.
And there's been opinions throughout the centuries that have said it could be administrative stuff. So they can impeach for that if they want to. They can just say...
Well, now the question is, there's 2 things.
High crime.
Yeah, high crimes. There's 2 things that are interesting. First of all, this sheaf of papers has to be transmitted. They have to walk it over to the Senate, and they haven't done that yet. And she said, "Well, no, not ready. We have to." And what she said was a mumble jumble of words. They were all English words, pretty much, but I didn't understand what the hell I was talking about.
Well, it's hard to understand exactly what she's doing, but I think Scott Adams had a pretty good analysis of what she might be doing.
Which is?
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one, my first thought was that she's just trying to make Trump stew. She just wants to stick something in his craw and then leave it there so that he can't deal with it. But who cares?
He doesn't care.
Well, the point is, the counter to that one is he didn't want the articles to be delivered anyway.
Right.
So keep them.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Don't bother me.
Right. Now, my second thought was maybe she is going to just keep him because they don't want the trial in the Senate.
Right.
Because people have come to her and said, look, don't put this through a trial.
Yeah.
Don't let this thing get smashed. Just leave it as it is. And we'll just call him impeached.
Well, this is another thing, of course. Another erudite, sensational, very well-respected elderly lawyer person, constitutional teacher, whatever it is.
Yeah.
These are the most revered.
I know, top men.
Top men.
Yes.
And has come out and said, well, if you don't deliver them, the impeachment ain't no impeachment.
Okay.
That part of the impeachment. Well, you read the that part of the thing, and Federalist Papers 65 and 66. No, that doesn't say anything like that. I mean,
yeah, you're exactly right. It doesnn't say anything like that. And I'm going to anoint myself top man here.
Okay.
Constitutional expert. And I'm going to tell you this. Anybody who says that they are a constitutional expert about impeachment is just wrong.
Okay.
Because you can't be.
Yeah.
And the reason you can't be is because there aren't enough examples in history to draw any conclusions from. It's like being an expert on resurrection.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. We had one.
That's right. That's right. There's maybe one.
Yeah.
No, you can't. So it's never happened, and without any precedent, then there's nothing in the law for there to be guidance.
Right.
You can infer something from some other country or.
Well, what I thought was interesting was there are top men, also very revered in the legal constitutional realm, who've said he's been impeached. And then this other guy's come out and said, no, has to be delivered. Right. So, like you say, who knows what? And of course, I'm saying that it doesn't really matter because in the history books, 6, 7, 8 years from now, they're going to have him as being impeached.
Maybe so, except that he won't be removed.
No, I know that.
Right.
But impeachment is not removal.
Right. But that's fine. Nobody knows what the word impeach means either.
Yeah.
This is another one of those words like misdemeanor that has its own meaning. So people will just move the line, like Scott Adams said. Well, okay, so he was impeached. Big deal.
Well, I thought there was there was a meme that was going around, and it showed Donald Trump there, and he said, "I'm a peach."
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's an obvious little crossover there. Yeah, so look, Pelosi can hold on to the articles if she wants to. Now, here's a couple questions. One question is Scott was pointing out, maybe she's just doing a timeout for Christmas or something like this, right?
Could be.
Okay, what about this? What if she holds them until after the election?
Right, well, here's the deal.
What if some Senate seats change hands?
No, they don't. They don't change hands until January 2nd.
Well, then she could hold them till then.
She might. She might very well. But one of the things you have to think about is there's the lame duck period there,
right.
2 months.
Yeah.
Where everybody's still in office and everybody, it's nothing changes, nothing rolls over until January 2nd.
Right.
And so the problem is, here's the problem. Remember now, that's a new Congress.
Yeah.
Remember now, all House representatives have to stand for election.
Okay.
So the impeachment is for this current Congress.
The thing is, though,
And so when they have the new one in, they didn't impeach him.
that new Congress did.
No.
But again, there's no guidance in history as to whether or not those articles get to sit there. All it says is the House shall impeach and the trial will be held in the Senate. It doesn't say anything about the timing at all. And you have to figure, if there was an impeachment right around the time of an election, then certainly the seating of the new people wouldn't disqualify the impeachment, right?
No, but you say that, but you think about it. If they walk over to the Senate and they say, and here's the articles of impeachment, and they look at it and say, but this is from another.
Exactly.
This is no good.
Well, exactly. And
this is no good because this is the old legislature.
Exactly. And look, one of the most famous cases in history that everybody knows about, Marbury versus Madison.
Oh God.
Is about exactly this situation.
Oh yeah.
It's about delivery of the appointment.
That's right.
And so the question becomes, if the
well, bring us up to speed on Marbury.
Well, yeah, it's a super overlapping thing, and it's really kind of tricky to explain. It would take me 5 or 10
well, never mind that.
But
it was a delivery thing, though.
Exactly.
The timing of a delivery.
Exactly. What happened, as in brief, what happened was the prior outgoing president did a bunch of last-second appointments,
okay,
and didn't necessarily deliver all of the appointments to the various personnel.
Okay.
So the new person coming in, I guess Jefferson, was like, "No, sorry,
Madison.
it didn't happen."
Marbury.
Well, but it was against Madison.
Oh, okay, okay.
Prior. So the point is that it stopped the appointments from happening, I believe. I have to go back and check now. Of course, the whole case is about the court's ability to rule on issues like this. That's why it's famous. It's not about these little trivial facts in between. But what that does establish is the court's ability to rule on a new case that you just talked about. That is to say, if there is some discrepancy in the delivery of the appointment, and the delivery of the impeachment, guess who's going to decide it?
Okay.
The Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And we do have precedent for that being decided by them. So you're absolutely right. A constitutional expert could come in and argue either way. I could swear this is it.
Yeah.
I'm sure 100% that's what the founders meant, and somebody else could come in and say the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And nobody except the Supreme Court will be able to say which is which.
Yeah.
And I think there's a very powerful argument for what you just said. Obviously, I mean this is the old stuff.
Yeah.
It's out of date.
Who are these people?
That's right. But the counter argument's going to be, look, if we had to impeach right at the time of election, and you had to get the impeachment because it was a matter of national security or something, you had to have the old Congress vote for it. We couldn't deliver the stuff in time or something. If there was some Christmas holiday snafu or something, you could see an argument for that. But those are the kind of facts I think that the court would evaluate. And what they would come back on, I would hope, is you can't just impeach and then just let them sit there. Like if she just waited for a whole year, I think that they would probably feel pretty secure about chucking them.
Yeah, I think so too.
But she could at least wait until maybe Trump did something else negative. Maybe he riles up some senators. She waits until March or something, and I don't know, he pisses off some senators.
Well, remember now, you gotta have to piss off a lot of them because
I agree.
Remember now, this is 2/3.
Yeah.
It takes. So good luck.
I think there's at least 50% chance he just pockets it, goes away.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. One other thing I'd like to say, just sort of all along those lines, people keep coming out and saying two things. One is they keep saying Trump is afraid of the trial, and if he was really innocent, he would want the trial. Okay. No. That's not how legal things work.
No.
Okay. When you're being charged and you're innocent, what you don't do is demand that the procedure goes forward. Okay.
Well, there's a 1 hour split into two 45-minute things on don't talk to the cops.
Exactly.
And this is what I mean. And the guy goes through this stuff where he was in
the video, right?
No.
I do have videos.
They said, here's my ticket. Here's my. I was in the hotel. I was in Beirut, and here's my room ticket and everything like that. And they still call your ass in there for something.
Yeah. Look, there's a reason why we have the Fifth Amendment. Shut up.
Shut up.
Everything you say will be used against you.
Yeah.
So you don't say anything.
No.
That's the bottom rule.
Well,
and everybody should know that.
We should come back and I don't have a copy here, but you've got your little book on Amazon.
Yeah.
What's it called again?
Black and Blue Lives. How to Survive.
And one of the things we thought about doing was to put in there, in like when in the old books where you had a library card.
Yeah.
We put a piece of masking tape.
Right.
So you can do it over your mouth.
Exactly.
And I want my lawyer.
That's right. That's what it says on the outside of the masking tape.
That was it.
That's right. I want my lawyer, and that's exactly what should happen.
That's exactly. But I thought that would be, a book with a little piece of tape.
And then the other thing that people keep bringing up about the impeachment is now they're trying to say, people are trying to say Mitch McConnell has violated his oath of office because he's already claiming that he's going to be on Donald Trump's side.
Right.
And other people on the counter side have said Schiff or Nadler violated their oath of office because they said before the vote on impeachment whose side they were going to be on.
Yeah.
Now, this is an incorrect analysis from the press on these things or whoever's making these claims.
Hard to believe.
Hard to believe. Here's what's going on. What people recognize sort of inherently, probably because they've seen TV or been to jury selection, is that jurors are prevented from making up their minds prior to the evidence presented at trial. And as a juror, you're not supposed to have prior knowledge of what's going on.
Right.
If you have prior knowledge, you can get excluded.
That's what I do.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I've been called up there a couple of times, and I say, "Looks guilty to me."
That's right. Yeah. Okay, you're out of here.
You're out of here.
Whitey. But that is in a trial situation. Okay.
Yeah.
What we have here is an impeachment. It's totally different from a trial situation, and the way it's different is that evidence is allowed in extraneously. That is, it's not sequestered evidence. If you're a senator or a House member and you have prior knowledge of President Trump, in a completely different situation. If he's convicted in your mind already, that's totally okay because that evidence is allowed to be considered.
Okay.
Whereas in a normal court of law, you can't consider that evidence. You can only consider what's presented to you.
Yeah.
So that's what the standard.
The jury will disregard that remark.
Exactly. And that's the standard they're trying to hold Mitch to and Schiff to is exactly that. And no, I'm sorry, they don't have to be held to that standard. Anybody can come out right now and say, I'm going to vote to convict or acquit, and it's perfectly okay because they're not held to the same standard as actual jurors. And because the evidence is presented differently.
Yeah.
So get over it.
All right, moving on.
That's it.
We're gonna go down under to the New Zealanders.
Okay.
I thought this was great. New Zealanders hand in 50,000 guns after the assault weapon ban. Now, apparently, what they did is, there was a Muslim, there was an attack on a Muslim church or something down there.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people were killed.
Yeah.
And I guess it was an assault weapon that was used.
Yeah.
And so they rushed into their parliament or whatever it was and passed this assault weapon ban. Mm-hmm. And so they had a if you brought your gun in, they would either pay you or you had a
pay you or arrest you.
Or arrest you. So no, you had a free ride. In other words, it didn't matter. Now they wouldn't pay you if they wouldn't arrest you, but if you were under an indictment or something, they wouldn't pay you. I forget. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. The point is that 50,000 guns were turned in, which is kind of interesting. And the New Zealand authorities said Saturday that their country will be a safer place after owners handed in more than 50,000 guns during a buyback program following a ban on assault weapons.
I should say, after law-abiding citizens turned in 50,000 weapons.
Exactly. They banned the most lethal types of semi-automatic weapons within a month. Provisional figures indicate that 33,000. Now, I don't know what the population of New Zealand is. I forget, it's millions. Some millions, maybe 10 million, maybe. I don't know.
Not that many.
If that, yeah. Anyway, 33,000 people handed in 51,000 guns. So here's the deal. Since New Zealand has been there, 300 years or whatever it is, the 250 years, it says, there's been a grand total of one mass shooting. Okay, one.
Yeah.
And so there have been tens of thousands of people in possession of such weapons that in that country, as the article reveals, and we're to believe that taking away 50,000 of these guns are going to make it, a country safer. And what's interesting is there never was a public security problem. I mean, one mass shooting in 200 years.
This was
in New Zealand.
This was a knee-jerk reaction by just ridiculous people who thought, oh, we're going to do something now, no matter what. And in my estimation, this makes their country a lot less safe.
I agree.
I'm curious to see how crime rates will change now that the criminals know that there's a significant...
Yeah, but you don't look at New Zealand as a really major criminal outcrop.
No.
They're pretty...
We're talking about marginal stuff here.
Yeah,
We're talking about before last week they were planning a heist, and one of the guys was like, "Man, I don't want to get shot." And this week they're like, "Hey, those guys turned in their guns, so maybe we could go over there and we won't get shot, even if it's a bust." And so I just have to think that there's going to be a marginal uptick in...
Well, what there has been a marginal uptick in London, I know, is knifings.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I mean, it's no more gun, but...
that's right. That's exactly right. It's widespread, and it's more... Now, I think it's more murders in London than in New York.
Really?
Yeah, and
Wow.
they're done, like you said, by knife and such. And look, knife's an incredibly lethal way to get some business done.
Hurts too.
Oh man, and it's quick and efficient, and they're impossible to. Everybody's got kitchen knives. I mean, they're everywhere. So
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, if you get yourself a decent kitchen knife, I mean, you get something about this big, you can kill them
you're
pretty
formidable,
quick.
formidable. And so the only
have to
defense to
practice
that
first.
was guns.
Yeah.
But now, too bad if you're living in London.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I personally believe that these types of gun restrictions are detrimental to the safety of society. And that doesn't even count the ultimate aim for their proliferation, which is, of course, to prevent revolution.
Right.
I mean, you could add up all of the mass shootings and all the killings and all the suicides and everything, and when you compare that to the 100 million people that die in a massive war, it's a pittance. It's a tiny amount.
Yeah.
And so it's worth it from a statistical standpoint to have the guns in society to prevent the revolution. But that's such a big concept. People are like, oh, it'll never happen.
Yeah, of course, it'll never happen. Right. The Army and Navy's investigation is finally over.
Yes.
Now, what, as you probably don't remember this, but there was the sign.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that they were doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody, and of course, people called up right away and said,
Yeah.
"White power!" They're the Army and Navy people. It was at the game, at the football game, and so it was on TV. And right away, so they had to launch an investigation.
Yes.
Well, it turned out that anybody that knows this, it's a game that kids play.
No, like everybody knew.
Everybody knew that it was a circle
Everybody
game.
knew. Look, this highlights a problem that we're having in society right now that has to do with the difference between implication and inference.
Ah, okay.
And it's huge. And what's happening is people in society are concluding that it doesn't matter what your implication was. It's the inference that's important. So when these kids do this sign, it doesn't matter if they're saying okay or doing the circle game. It's the fact that somebody else on the other side of the message, somebody watching the TV, is personally affronted by that because they think it's racist.
I would say this is so easy to fix.
Okay.
So, you know, you do this and somebody is really upset about it, give them this one.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Look, here's the bottom line.
Understand this one.
People have to distinguish between intent. You cannot say that a sign is negative because somebody infers something negative out of it. Look, there's whole movies made about this. How many movies have we seen where the two white guys show up in the African village and one of them rejects the king's daughter, and that's an insult, and now they're going to kill them both.
Yeah,
and
well,
it's because
you say that. It is interesting because one of the things, I mean, you've been to Japan, but there are things that you have to do in Japan that you would be, that are completely out of bounds here in this country,
totally,
and vice versa.
when you point at yourself in Japan, you do this. You point at your nose.
Okay.
If you point at your chest, it means I want to fight you.
See, there you
It's a simple thing. Like, look,
and you know, and it would be amazing in a way, I guess. If you know, I'm obviously not Japanese, but I mean, if I went over there and said, "Look, would they would probably forgive me?" Wouldn't you think?
yes, see, that's the whole point. Is they know what your implication is,
Right.
And so they attribute the meaning to what you're implying, not
Right.
what they could possibly infer.
Right.
And that's the way it has to be done.
Yeah.
Look, you think about this white power symbol. Okay, this is also the symbol for the number 9 in sign language.
Was that right?
Yes,
I didn't know
that's
that.
the number 9. It's 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay.
Okay, and this is also the letter F in sign language. Okay, D, E, F, G. Okay, this is so you either have to conclude.
You heard it here, folks.
That's right, look,
First,
you either have to conclude
learn
that
sign language.
all deaf people are white power racists. Okay, or implication is what controls the meaning of the symbol. Okay, and look, and then here's the final thought I have on this whole white power symbol thing. What the hell do people think that they're signaling? Like, I'm white power and here I am or something? Like, there's no information transfer in this. What does that mean? It doesn't mean let's get together later and have a KKK rally.
I picked up the phone and called in.
And you're going to announce it to everybody? Like, how is it a secret signal if everybody knows what it means? This is like when the flat earth people point to the dollar bill and they say, look, you can see right here that the secret is written in every single dollar bill. And it is spelled out right here. And my thought is, why would they put the secret on every single dollar bill? Why would you do that? If this is a secret symbol, why would you do that? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, and there's no rational reason why somebody would make a white power symbol to anybody else. I mean, maybe in prison. I can see if you're in prison, and you got to communicate with that guy over there without that guy seeing it right now, or this guy's going to kill you. I can see that, okay? It may be a white power symbol in prison, but out here in civilized world, we don't make gang signs to people. That doesn't do anything.
It's so funny to see when I see that on TV, and you'll see a bunch of people, and they're all going, this.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything.
Not to me.
It's a kid's game. It's always been a kid's game.
Right.
These types of symbols. That's what they all are, is kids' games. So get over it.
Okay, well, let me run on here real quick.
Yeah.
I'm going to go across over to Pakistan. Pakistan hands down a death sentence to a scholar accused of blasphemy. Now, what happened was this guy, he's in an anti-terrorism court on Saturday, sentenced a liberal scholar and former university lecturer to death on blasphemy charges. What happened was, in 2013, 6 years ago, he was accused by his students at the university where he taught of making blasphemous Facebook posts insulting Islam's Prophet Muhammad, and it carries a mandatory death penalty in Pakistan, which is 95% Muslim. His lawyers say he was framed by the students from an extremist Islamist party for his liberal and secular views, and this month a U.S. commission placed this guy on a special. We look out for this guy's innocent guy. We put him on a global victim. So he's going to be hanged by his neck until death, subject to confirmation by the Honorable High Court. Yeah, that's right. And so what happened was, it was interesting that they said that there was some intimidation that went on. It turned out that his defense lawyer, 1 month after he hired a defense lawyer, the defense lawyer was murdered. And so they had a little trouble getting a lawyer.
Oops.
Yeah, oops, right. So no one's been charged on that murder. But this guy's going, hanging. And I thought, that is, again,
international justice.
Well, I look at that, and then of course it comes to the next article.
Okay.
Pakistan cannot get enough of America's F-16 fighting Falcons. Apparently, during an aerial skirmish in February of this year, an Indian Air Force MiG-21 Bison was shot down by a radar-guided missile from Pakistan. They apparently had a little up to, and they had said that the airplane that shot down the MiG was a JF-17 Thunder. It's a domestically built fighter built with Chinese assistance. Well, India unfortunately found the pieces of the missile, and they said, well, this missile actually only fits on F-16.
What's this, USA?
Yeah, right. Yeah, made in USA. And so they have a problem because, once one country attacks one of our allies, we're supposed to go to war.
That's it.
So they're
all in.
Yeah, they're all in. So apparently I wonder why Pakistan, for God's sakes, they got an A-bomb, and they've got fighter jets all over the place.
And they got tens of millions of people.
They have lots of people. Yeah. It's even though it's and they're 95% Muslim. It's interesting because that's what probably, as you know, it had to do with the Kashmir business and everything.
Yeah.
When they all busted off of there and started their own country, because it was all India for a while.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought it was interesting. The India Prime Minister person came out and said that claims the MiG-21's pilot managed to shoot down an F-16. Well, yeah, maybe. I just thought it was interesting. The MiG-21 has been around since, I understand, since the 50s.
Okay.
And the F-16 saw service in the mid-70s. But, we
can get confirmation on that from Kenny.
Yeah, that's right.
Astute listener.
Yeah. So, and speaking of, we're going to run over there real quick, in India, India's now, and this is not all, is having riots in certain segments of the country because of the new law that questions Muslim citizenship.
Okay.
So there's some riots. So the first thing they've done is they suspend internet and phone services to quell the protests. So now you can't instant message anybody or whatever. And I thought, we've seen this before. Apparently, a lot of countries do this. Can you imagine here it's bad enough when the cable falls down, and I have to call them up and say, get out here and fix the cable. And
we're dying here.
Yeah, we're dying here, right? And so they cut it off, and it turns out Indian authorities have stepped up phone and mobile internet shutdowns in some parts of the country in order to thwart a groundswell of protests over a new citizenship law that excludes Muslims. Student-led protests have galvanized a large section of the Indian public and have been met with communications blocks in areas of New Delhi. Internet shutdowns are a favored tactic for the government prime minister, whatever her or his name is. Authorities have interrupted internet services at least 102 times so far this year. Emphasizes the restrictions are only temporary. Don't worry about it.
Sure.
So in India's, I like this part, India's Ministry of Information and Broadcasting issued an advisory Friday night asking broadcasters across the country to refrain from using content that could inflame further violence or that promotes anti-national attitudes. So they've asked the broadcasting places to, you really need to refrain from, and of course you can imagine that they're listening in on it. Gotcha, that inflames me,
Yeah, exactly. What power it is.
So I just there's tan power. Tan power. No, it's just I thought it was interesting that the countries there a lot of countries do this apparently. Egypt did it for a while and so forth, and they will basically cut off. In China, of course, is famous for it.
Well, and Iran just had the last they had during their riots or their protests. They did the same thing. Well, it won't be too long. You won't be able to do it. People will have. The nodes will be in everybody's phone or something. Right.
Well, that's not all. They said that they had. This article did say. I didn't read the entire article, but it did say that there have been some workarounds. But the authorities are stepping in to try and do the to silence the workarounds as well. But it's just interesting that that's the way the authorities figure that if the people can't communicate, then
right.
Okay, let me just see here.
Another international legal thing, just real quick, while you're looking.
Yeah.
The French convicted a company CEO of collective moral harassment.
Okay.
This
is collective moral harassment.
That's right. What happened was there's one of France's biggest telephone companies, Orange, I guess they're called now. It was France Telecom or something.
Okay.
And they needed some restructuring because they were hurting. So they had to lay off like 22,000 people. And in France, that's kind of illegal. So they figured out other ways to do it. And some of those people ended up committing suicide.
Okay.
So they convicted the CEO of illegal firings leading to suicide. And they're putting him in prison for a month and a half and fining him whatever.
Could be worse.
It could be worse. I mean, he didn't.
Could have been murder.
In this country, you'd go for 10 years.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But it's just interesting that they would convict somebody who is totally unrelated, that doesn't even know these people, never talked to these people at all, and all he was trying to do is run a company, and because of the restrictions on just trimming costs, he's going to go to prison, and.
So that's going to hurt.
Now, speaking of like I said, in this country, a man just got in Iowa for burning a flag. Did you see this one?
Yeah, I saw it. Now tell me, bring me up to speed on this.
So he burned a flag that was considered to be. Now, I haven't looked into this completely, so I don't know if there's anything else going on here.
I think there was.
There must be.
No, I do remember now glancing over it.
The thought that I had is that they said that this flag came from a church. And my thought was they probably thought he was trying to burn the church down.
I don't know about that, but apparently this guy might have had a lot of priors.
Well, whatever.
And,
I mean, here's the thing.
And they were trying to get him on stealing.
Right.
For openers. I don't think they were going to get him for burning.
Okay.
Because that you can do that.
Yeah, well, it's stealing.
But
right.
I think the theft.
It was somebody else's flag.
Yeah, it was somebody else's flag, right? But the other thing is, and so how long is he going to jail for?
16 years.
16 years.
Which is essentially life for the guy. I mean, it's life in prison for stealing.
We're going to have to read this entire article.
We will.
That just doesn't happen. I believe there was some other stuff involved in that.
My only thought, I have two thoughts about it, like you said. One is that if he burned the flag inside the church, then they might have convicted him of some sort of
attempted arson.
Exactly. And I could see that.
16 years for attempted arson?
It's still a huge, huge sentence. And the second thing is that that's the kind of sentences Americans hand out.
Yeah.
16 years, here you go. Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Okay, the next thing we have here that's kind of interesting. We talked a few minutes ago about the Ninth Circuit out there doing this stuff. It turns out that Trump is, in filling all these judgeships, the Ninth Circuit is swinging conservative.
What?
Yes. What happened is he's this month brought to 9 the number of appointments that Trump has made to the 29 member bench. Democratic appointed judges now hold a 3-seat majority compared with 11 at the start of Trump's tenure. So it's so you could see that the literally infamous Ninth Circuit could swing conservative.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Well, like we say though, you never know what you're going to get with judges.
No, you don't. Of course, once they put the robe on, it changes, That's it. And the last item I've got here real quick is robots humble U.S. Army in war games. I thought this is what's coming up. How big a difference does it make when you reinforce foot troops with drones and ground robots? You get a 10-fold increase in combat power, according to a recent Army war games. This guy said, this guy who commanded a robot reinforced platoon in nearly a dozen computer simulated battles for whatever it was, we reduced the risk to U.S. forces to 0, basically, and we're still able to accomplish the mission. According to the special report, that mission involved dislodging a defending company of infantry of about 120 soldiers with a single platoon of just 40 attackers. Now, normally, you have to, if you want to dislodge 120, you need a 5 or 6 to 1. You'd have to have 600 people.
Right, Sun Tzu says attack with 5 to 1.
Right. It turned out that this is reversed now. It's 1 to 5 or whatever it is, or 1 to 3. They said.
Well, you said one thing in there that just raised a red flag to me, and that is the
computer simulated.
Well, no, it said reduce the mortality rate to 0, or
for the attacking guys. Yeah.
Right. No, it didn't. Not 0. I'm sorry.
Why not?
Well, because
the robots took all the heat.
Yeah, but look,
there were 40 soldiers in this thing.
Well, look, I'm not saying that there were no casualties at the time. That there weren't no. What I'm saying is that the probability is you're going to have casualties.
Okay, right.
And even if your invading force doesn't have casualties, if they can't defend themselves against your invading force, guess what they do? They run around the backside and go after your home base or something. You don't fight what you can't beat. So. Just a little. Maybe I read it wrong or heard it wrong. Who knows how it was reported exactly? But
again,
interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. What's interesting is this is the future of warfare.
Yeah.
I mean, you already have drones that are armed and dangerous up there all the time. They, the propeller drones up there can hang out for hours and hours and hours.
Once they get a 50 cal mounted on a little robocopter drone that can be controlled from a satellite worldwide and have a day's worth of charge, everything changes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're going to see it'll be Skynet versus other Skynet.
Right.
So that's we're seeing it now, and it was interesting because they did have a thing they showed they had a drone or whatever it was. The 2 or 3 of the companies that are making the Army drones or whatever, the ones that walk on and everything like that.
Boston Dynamics.
Yeah, but there's another couple of. Anyway, apparently they had a show and tell, and they look pretty scary. I mean, you see one of those things coming towards you.
Worse and worse. Eric and I freaked out a long time ago when we saw just the robot at Disney World that moved based on a person inside a suit.
Yeah.
And but the fluidity with which the robot moved, the precision, it was scary. We were
10 years ago or
at least, yeah. We were backing up. It was a little bit scary. All right, that's all you got?
Yep.
I got one real quick, or two real quick things here. One is, this is super quick. Robert Reich posted a tweet.
Okay.
He said, 60% of wealth is inherited. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps is a scam. That was his whole tweet.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just wrong on so many levels, I had to bring it out. Number one, first of all, okay, so then what about, how do the people who are giving the money away make the money? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, somebody made the money.
Somebody made the money.
Right? And B, is he trying to suggest people just not work and just try to inherit? What, I mean, what's the point of that tweet? What's the advice that he wants us, what's the takeaway from that? It's so stupid from my perspective.
Well, I guess what he's saying is that 60% of the people, you're supposed to turn down your inheritance. Go work.
I mean, what he's trying to suggest is that we need to have a wealth tax.
Well, no,
and that it's unfair, and that you shouldn't even. It's not you. It's not because you're not working hard. It's because you're not inheriting money that you're not getting rich. It's just a totally backwards way to present.
There have been people who come up and said to tax inheritance at 100%.
Oh right, no, I'm sure, and he's probably one of them.
I wouldn't doubt it.
But to me, it's just he hasn't thought through that comment yet.
No.
There's no way to interpret that in any good way. The only thing I can say, well, okay, then I guess I won't go to work.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that mean? There's no way to take away anything positive from that. And then also you got to figure he's not considering the fact that the wealth has grown. It's a growing pie. Mm-hmm. It's not just a percentage. It continues to grow. So
I have a problem with that particular quote statistic anyway. 60%.
Oh yeah, no, that's not
because I'm thinking about what do you. If your parents die and you get a silverware set, mm-hmm. I mean, okay, right. I mean,
well, and that was somebody. In fact, it was Scott Adams tweeted after him is what percentage of that wealth is significant wealth?
Right, that's what I did.
And he was suggesting something like 5% or something. I don't know, but my point is that just the whole tweet is ridiculous. And
well, I can tell you from personal experience that inherited wealth often gets frittered away.
There you go. So, and then the final thing that I have this week, and it maybe should have been the first thing, but it's fine that it's the final thing because it's apropos, and that is that the real news this week is something that nobody's talking about.
Really?
Except, of course, Peter Schiff talked about it.
Okay.
And that is, they just passed 2 spending bills. One of which is 1.7 trillion, mm-hmm. and another one is 0.7 trillion. Mm-hmm. The largest spending ever. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets everything that they want. Mm-hmm. AOC gets her 12 weeks maternity leave for all federal employees.
Wow.
Everybody gets all the funding. And I wonder what she thinks about Donald Trump after he signs that. I wonder what the Democrats think about Trump after he's just signed, or he's about to sign, 2 bills that are going to literally give the Democrats all of the spending that they want. And none of the Republicans seem to be objecting to this at all. This is like spending off the rails. This is total Democrat spending. This is more spending than Barack Obama. He's pegged the meter. He broke the pin off, mm-hmm. and now the needle is way down, and yet nobody even cares.
Well, one of the things is the TDS is so strong. Trump derangement syndrome, because one of the things you look at is the number of Jewish people that hate Trump. And he's done everything. He's the best friend.
The thing to Jerusalem.
He did everything. He's done he's been the finest friend.
And his kids are Jewish.
Right. I mean, he's got right. So I mean, what and they won't never vote for him. They hate him. Basically, it's one of those things. And then of course, we've got sanctions against Russia, but no, he's colluding with Russia. I mean, what are you talking about? We put sanctions on people over there. He's done it.
He's a Russian puppet, but Putin has gained what in the last 4 years? I don't know. But certainly not Crimea.
No, that's right. So yeah, it's just stunning to me to see.
Can you imagine if he had gotten Crimea after President Trump had been accused of being his puppet?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, Democrats spending like on steroids.
On steroids.
Off the rails. Nobody cares about the debt anymore.
No.
The Fed is full bore, full speed ahead, billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars a week or a month getting re-injected into the system.
Yeah.
And people are still calling Trump a conservative president, and they're still thinking of the economy as the best ever. And yet,
well, it was. I can tell you, in 1929, it was the best ever until Black Thursday or whatever
until
it was.
wasn't.
I mean, well, the guy named Fisher came out and said, "We're perpetually." This is like a week before a month before the crash. He came out, said, "We're on a perpetually high rising
state of growth,
right," and
exactly.
then a month later,
right.
So,
well, it's getting to be that feel. It certainly is. All right, that's all I've got. Hey, looks like Jack Rhodes tuned in.
all right.
Hard to believe. What's going on? All right, these tracks brought to you by Kevin McLeod. Thanks, Kevin. We appreciate it. We had fun with this.
Oh, which reminds me, we might very well not be here on Wednesday.
Oh, that's right,
Christmas Day, and we have the family coming up here for dinner, so
Yeah, odds are
we're not going to make Wednesday.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a Thursday show or something.
Maybe. We'll see.
All right, well, thanks for joining us. We'll be back
Merry
soon.
Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. I'm Counselor Curtis. This is the Jimmy Doane Show. See you soon.